The bus accident came in at 6:40 in the morning. 14 casualties. Emma had been in the ER since midnight, and she did not leave until every single one of them was stable. She made the graduation with 8 minutes to spare, still in her scrubs, hospital badge on her chest, hair loose from a shift that never ended. She had been planning to change. The morning did not give her a chance. A woman near the entrance looked at her the way certain people look at things they find offensive simply by existing. Then she said it loud enough for the people around her to hear. "This is a military-affiliated institution. There is a dress code. Some of us have standards." Emma said nothing. She kept walking toward the entrance. The administrator stopped her politely with the specific politeness of someone doing an impolite thing and hoping the packaging makes it acceptable. "Ma'am, we have had a complaint. Perhaps you could wait outside until the ceremony ends." Emma reached into her scrub pocket, placed a coin on the administrator's desk without a word. An old brass coin worn smooth on one side, the kind only given to Marine captains of a specific era. The administrator had no idea what it meant. Then the USMC commander walked through the entrance behind her. He looked at the coin on the administrator's desk and he stopped walking like something had reached out and grabbed him by the chest and held him completely still. Drop a comment telling us where you are watching from and subscribe, because the woman walking into this graduation this morning had no idea what today was about to give her. The bus accident came in at 6:40 in the morning. 14 casualties. A highway collision that sent broken people through Emma's ER doors in waves that did not stop arriving until she had moved from one to the next to the next. With the focused and unhurried efficiency of someone who has learned that panic is the most expensive thing you can bring into a room where people are already running out of time. She had been on shift since midnight. She did not leave until the last patient was stable, because leaving before the last patient was stable was simply not something her hands knew how to do, regardless of what else the morning required of her. She made the graduation with 8 minutes to spare, still in her scrubs. Hospital badge still clipped to her left chest. Blonde hair loosely tied back from a shift that had never given her a moment to fix it properly. She had a dress in her car, clean, pressed, folded carefully 3 days ago when she first thought about what today would look like. She never made it to the car. The morning did not give her a chance. And she was not the kind of person who stopped moving towards something important because the conditions were not ideal. James Carter was graduating today, her brother, 22 years old, a full scholarship at the most expensive military-affiliated college in the state. The kind of institution whose tuition was measured in numbers that most people encountered only in conversations about other people's money. The scholarship existed because their father, Marine Captain Ray Carter, had died in the Gulf War in 1991. And left behind a legacy that institutions like this one, honored with the specific and formal generosity of places that understand what certain sacrifices cost. James had been 3 years old when their father died. He knew the name and the rank and the flag that had been folded and handed to their mother at a ceremony. James was too young to remember. Emma had been 9. She remembered everything. She had been remembering everything every day for 20 years and carrying it in the specific and quiet way that older children carry things when the family needs someone to carry them and there is nobody else available to do it. She carried his coin, had since the day her mother pressed it into her hand at the funeral and told her to keep it safe until James was old enough to understand what it meant. A brass Gulf War-era Marine captain's challenge coin worn smooth on one side from 2 decades of daily contact with her hands. Touched the way some people touch a rosary, not for luck. Just for presence, just for the specific and necessary reminder that he had been real and that what he had done had been real. And that the reason James was graduating today, in a pressed uniform on a sunlit parade ground, traced directly and permanently to a man back who had not come home from a desert 20 years ago, so that his children could have mornings exactly like this one. The entrance to the ceremony hall was exactly what you would expect from an institution that charged what this one charged. Wide glass doors, polished stone floors, staff-impressed linen, the ambient hum of money doing what money does when it gathers in one place and arranges itself off into an occasion. Emma pushed through the doors and the air conditioning hit her, and she was aware for the first time since 6:40 that morning of how she looked. The wrinkled scrubs, the badge, the hair, the specific and honest exhaustion of someone who had been useful all night and had not had a moment to make herself presentable for an audience that valued presentation. She was aware of it, and she kept walking, because awareness and stopping are 2 entirely different things, and she had never once confused them. The woman near the entrance noticed her immediately. 50-some designer jacket, the specific groomed confidence of someone for whom this institution was not an achievement, but an expectation. The kind of woman who had been attending events like this one for long enough that she had stopped distinguishing between being a guest and being in charge. She looked at Emma's scrubs with an expression that did not bother to hide what it was. Then she said it not quietly, not to her husband, not in any register that could be mistaken for a private observation, loud enough for the 4 or 5 people standing nearby to hear every word with complete clarity. This is a military-affiliated institution. She said, "There is a standard of dress that reflects the dignity of the occasion. Some of us have enough respect for the ceremony to present ourselves appropriately." Nobody nearby said anything. A woman 2 feet away found something interesting to look at on her phone. A man in a blazer took a small step sideways. Emma did not stop walking. She did not look at the woman directly. She simply continued toward the entrance doors with the specific and unhurried calm of someone who has been in rooms where the stakes were measured in lives rather than opinions, and has learned to move through smaller turbulence without adjusting her course. The administrator reached her before she got to the doors. Male 40's the apologetic efficiency of someone doing something wrong and hoping that delivery makes it acceptable. He explained there had been a complaint. He explained the dress code and the dignity of the occasion and the possibility of waiting outside until the ceremony concluded. He said all of it with a practiced smile and eyes that had already made their decision before he started speaking. Emma reached into her scrub pocket without a word. She placed the coin on his desk, an old brass coin, heavy, worn smooth on one side. The unit insignia of the 1st Marine Division, barely readable through 20 years of daily handling. The administrator looked at it. He looked at her. He looked back at it. He had absolutely no idea what it was. He was drawing breath to hand it back to her, and asked her one more time to please wait outside when the entrance doors opened behind Emma, and a man in full dress uniform walked through, and his eyes went directly to the coin on the desk, and he stopped walking as though the floor had disappeared beneath him without warning. Colonel Daniel Marsh had been walking through that entrance at the same time on the same morning for 6 consecutive years. He arrived early because arriving early was not a habit for him, but a condition. The specific and permanent orientation of a man for whom being prepared was not a choice, but a baseline that everything else was built on top of. He had a schedule for the morning, a program, an order of events that had been planned and reviewed and confirmed, and was now simply waiting to be executed with the precision that this institution expected and that he had never once failed to deliver. He came through the doors with the measured and unhurried stride of someone who understood that his presence changed the atmosphere of a room and had learned over 30 years to carry that fact without letting it become performance. He was 3 steps inside the entrance when his eyes moved across the space in the specific automatic sweep that never fully switched off, regardless of context or occasion, and landed on the coin sitting on the administrator's desk. He stopped walking, not gradually, completely. The way a man stops when something reaches through the ordinary surface of a morning and grabs him by something deeper than attention. He knew that coin from 12 feet away, not because it was large or decorated or designed to be noticed, because he knew the specific worn quality of its surface in the way that people know things they have encountered in serious contexts with the body rather than just the mind. He had seen 3 of those coins in his entire career. He knew the program they came from, the rank they were given to, the era they belonged to, and the specific and brutal attrition rate of the men who had carried them into the Gulf War in 1991. He knew that the number of those coins still in circulation was small. He knew that most of the men who had carried them had not carried them home. He crossed the entrance floor in 8 steps and picked up the coin from the administrator's desk and turned it over once in his palm and said nothing for a moment that felt considerably longer than it was. Then he looked at Emma at the scrubs, at the badge, at the dark circles and the loosely tied hair and the specific layered exhaustion of someone who had been doing something that mattered all night and had not yet had a single moment to process that the night was over. He looked at her the way experienced men look at things they are trying to place, not with dismissal, not with judgment, but with the careful and assembling attention of someone putting a picture together from pieces that are not yet fully arranged. He asked her one question. "Whose coin is this?" Emma told him. "Captain Ray Carter, 1st Marine Division, Gulf War." Marsh was quiet for a moment in the specific way that men are quiet when information arrives that is larger than the space they were prepared to receive it in. Then he asked how long she had carried it. Emma said 20 years. Marsh looked at the coin one more time, at the worn surface at the insignia, barely visible through 2 decades of daily contact. And then he sat it gently on the desk and turned to the administrator and said 4 words in a voice so quiet and so completely certain that the administrator's hand, which had been moving toward the phone, stopped moving entirely. "Get me her file." The administrator moved immediately without asking a single clarifying question because the specific quality of those 4 words left no room for clarifying questions. If you have ever watched someone finally receive the respect they deserved without having to ask for it, drop the words "never judge" in the comments right now. Because what was about to happen to Margaret Holloway in the next 60 seconds was the specific and unhurried justice that arrives not loudly but completely. Marsh turned to Holloway. She was still standing nearby with the specific patient confidence of a woman who was accustomed to having her complaints handled efficiently and was simply waiting for the process to conclude in the way she had already decided it would. She had not yet fully registered that the man who had just walked through the entrance and picked up the coin from the desk was the presiding officer of the entire ceremony, and that his expression had changed in a way that meant the morning was no longer going the direction she had assumed it was going. Marsh looked at her with the calm and level attention of a man who has assessed considerably more serious problems than a wealthy parent with a complaint and has always found the assessment straightforward. He did not raise his voice. He did not perform displeasure. He simply looked at her and began to speak in the same quiet and certain voice he had used with the administrator. He told her what the coin meant. He told her about Captain Ray Carter, the rank, the unit, the year, the desert, the specific and permanent absent that Gulf War combat death leaves in the life of a family young enough that the children grow up with a photograph instead of a father. He told her that the woman standing in front of her in hospital scrubs had been in the ER since midnight, treating casualties from a highway accident that came in at 6:40 that morning and had not stopped arriving until she had treated every single one of them. He told her she had made the graduation with 8 minutes to spare, and that the dress she had planned to wear was still in her car because the morning had not given her a moment to get to it. He told her that the scholarship that put her brother in a uniform on that parade ground existed because their father had not come home from a war, and that the woman standing in front of her had raised that brother alone on a nurse's salary and her father's memory for 22 years. He said all of this without raising his voice above the specific quiet register he had begun with. And the effect of that, of words that Large delivered in a voice that controlled, was something that Holloway had no framework to respond to, because the men in her life had always performed their authority rather than simply carrying it. The confidence left her face in the specific way that things leave when they were never fully earned. Not dramatically, not all at once, but piece by piece until what to fancy was something considerably smaller and more honest than what had been there before. Her husband beside her found something to look at on his phone. The administrator returned with a tablet and handed it to Marsh without a word. Marsh looked at the screen briefly, nodded once, and handed it back. Then he reached into his own jacket pocket and removed his presiding officer's coin. The commanding officer's coin, given only to the man running the ceremony, and placed it on the administrator's desk beside the space where Emma's father's coin had been. He looked at the administrator. She sits front row family section center. He looked at Holloway one final time with an expression that was not unkind but was not warm and said, "I suggest you spend the ceremony thinking about what military service actually looks like because it does not always look the way you expect it to." Then he walked toward the ceremony building with the same measured stride he had arrived with, and the entrance went quiet in the specific way that spaces go quiet. After something significant has happened inside them, and the people present are still processing what they witnessed, Emma picked up her father's coin from the desk and put it back in her scrub pocket beside her heart, where it had lived for 20 years. She looked at the administrator, who was standing with the specific expression of a man who has just understood that he nearly asked the wrong person to leave for the worst possible reason. She did not say anything to him. She simply walked through the entrance doors and found her seat in the front row center of the family section and sat down with her hands folded in her lap and her father's coin in her pocket and 8 minutes until the ceremony began, and the specific quiet composure of someone who has arrived somewhere they were always supposed to be. The ceremony began at 8:15, with the specific and well-ordered beauty that military institutions produce when they are operating at their best, the formation marching onto the parade ground in precise alignment, commands echoing across the open space with the clean authority of voices trained to carry. Families in the stands watching their sons and daughters complete something they had been working toward for years, with the particular combination of pride and relief that only arrives when something difficult is finally finished. Emma sat front row center in her scrubs with her badge on her chest and her father's coin in her pocket and her hands folded in her lap, and watched James march onto the field with the specific and quiet attention of someone who has been waiting for this moment for 22 years and is now allowing themselves to be fully present in it without reservation or performance. She watched him find his position in the formation and square his shoulders and go still with the trained and deliberate stillness of a newly minted Marine, and something expanded in her chest that had no single adequate name. Pride was part of it. Relief was part of it. The specific and permanent grief of a woman who had wanted their father to see this and had made peace over many years with the fact that he would not was part of it too. All of it simultaneously. The way the important moments are always all of it simultaneously, whether you are ready for that or not. Margaret Holloway sat 4 rows behind her and did not say a single word for the duration of the ceremony. Her husband sat beside her with the specific, careful stillness of a man who had understood from the moment Marsh walked away from the entrance that the wisest thing available to him for the remainder of the morning was silence. The administrator stood at the edge of the family section and did not approach Emma again. The ordinary machinery of the ceremony moved forward around the extraordinary thing that had happened at the entrance that morning, the way ordinary things always move forward around extraordinary things without acknowledgement, without pause, simply continuing, because continuation is what ordinary things do. Marsh took the podium at 9:15. He was a man who understood ceremony, and he delivered the standard portions of it with the practiced precision of someone who had done this enough times that the delivery required no conscious effort, which left his full attention available for the thing he had been thinking about since he picked up a coin from an administrator's desk and turned it over in his hand and looked at the woman standing on the other side of it. He spoke about the graduating class, about what they had earned, and what it would require of them going forward. He spoke about service and sacrifice and the specific and unglamorous reality of what military life asked of the people who chose it. And then he paused. The specific deliberate pause of a man departing from the prepared text because something has happened that the prepared text was not written to account for, and that the prepared text was therefore not equipped to honor. He did not name Emma. He described her. He told the graduating class and their families that something had happened at the entrance to the ceremony that morning that he believed every person on that parade ground needed to hear. He described a woman who had arrived still wearing the clothes from the night before because she had been treating accident casualties when she should have been getting ready and had not left the hospital until every single one of them was stable. He described a coin that had belonged to a Marine captain who did not come home from the Gulf War in 1991 and had left behind 2 children young enough that the older one had spent the next 22 years raising the younger one on a nurse's salary and their father's memory. He said that the woman he was describing was sitting in the family section right now, in her hospital scrubs with her badge still on her chest, and that she was there because her brother was graduating today, and she had not been going to miss it regardless of what the morning asked of her. He paused again. Then he said the courage that built this institution was not always worn in a uniform. Sometimes it arrived in scrubs at 7:52 with 8 minutes to spare and a coin in its pocket that most people in this building would not have recognized. We should all be grateful it came through that door this morning. In the formation, James Carter felt it before he fully understood it.